So, what do you do when you have an illness or an injury that comes about when you're in the middle of a training cycle? How do you get back on track after you are recovered? So, that's really what we're going to focus on in this video, because if you're in the middle of an injury or illness, obviously you need to take care of that first from a professional and get healthy and get recovered. But I'm talking about afterwards, after you've been given the green light. How are you going to jump back into that training plan in an appropriate way? Because most of the time, you're not going to be able to just keep doing it as it was planned initially. And so you've got to start manipulating it a little bit that's going to work for you and keep you from getting injured again and get you to the starting line healthy, as prepared as you possibly can be. All right, so number one is really, really important. And I just alluded to it basically, but you need to consult with the right professional first, instead of just jumping back into your plan completely blindly, not knowing if your illness or injury needs you to do something a little bit different based off what a medical professional might tell you. Now, obviously, there's going to be situations where there's minor illnesses or very minor injuries where you can probably go it alone, but I would be remiss to tell you to just do this without consulting the right person. So if you're having an injury, ideally you are going to consult with someone who specifically works with athletes or runners. The problem with professionals who don't necessarily work with the people who are doing what we do, going out for runs, and this is the thing that we love, it's very easy for them to just tell you, well, just stop running. That's the easy solution, right? When it's just not that easy, when you guys know how important running is to us with not just our physical health, but our mental well-being as well. And so a lot of times it is a situation where they can get you back out on the road, back out on the trails, wherever it may be, training for whatever you need to train for in just a little bit of a different way. So when you're seeking out that professional of who you're going to talk to, you want it to be someone who works with runners. There are plenty of them out there. You just got to do a little bit of extra research. Now, if we're talking about some sort of a debilitating illness, perhaps COVID-19, and clearly there is a wide range of the symptoms that people experience. So I'm not telling you that you necessarily have to go to the doctor, right, if you have COVID-19, but in certain circumstances, there are people that are highly affected from having COVID, and they need to have a proper plan in place of what is appropriate to get back into their plan of where they were based on how they're feeling. You know, any of those kind of respiratory illnesses that really set you back more than a week, it's just really wise for you to talk to a doctor so that you make sure that you're not doing anything that's detrimental or making your health worse. So kind of going back to that story about seeing a medical professional, last year I had a calf pull before a marathon that was really, really important to me. I had qualified for Boston, but I knew it was very likely that I would not get into Boston because of the cutoff time. And so to get into 2022, the Boston Marathon I just ran this past year, I had a marathon planned for June. And about two and a half weeks out, I had a calf strain. And I needed to see someone because I needed to find out what I should be doing to make sure that I could get back on track as quickly as possible. I wanted to run this marathon. He had me basically start on the treadmill a little bit and was able to tell me exactly what I needed to do to get back to running safely, because I was very fearful to run at all. And honestly, without his help, I would not have done at all what he was recommending that I do. And it was the perfect prescription for what I needed to get back on the road and building that mileage safely. So I cannot recommend enough. I know it's some out-of-pocket money possibly for a lot of you to do that, maybe more than you want to be spending, but if the running is important to you, then you need to make that a priority. So the second one is what I like to call the 10-minute or the 1 mile rule. You can kind of just give yourself the opportunity to go out for about 10 minutes, 1 mile, something around that range, just to give yourself a little bit of a test. And this is where you're kind of figuring out your level of pain that's possibly going on, because it might be a situation where you think you are fully recovered from an injury or fully recovered from an illness, and maybe you find once you get out there that you're actually not. And so obviously if you're not feeling any pain, if you feel completely comfortable in your lungs or whatever it might be, then that's kind of your good go ahead, your good test to say, all right, you're ready to get back out there. We're going to be talking about how to increase mileage in just a minute, but in terms of just having an idea of if you're ready to just start back running. If you are recovered, do this kind of 10-minute 1 mile test. It just gets you out there a little bit without being too taxing on the body, and then you can make a plan from there. And honestly, if you still feel good in that 10 minutes, you can continue maybe walking for up to 20, 30 minutes. If it's similar to what you were doing before you got hurt, keeping that time frame still pretty low. Obviously, you don't want to do a super, super long run your first time back. It just gives you an idea of where you're at with your healing. Number 3 is go as slow as you need. So you're going to have to take your ego completely out of the equation, because depending on how long you've been gone, you just cannot expect your body to be performing at the same pace, the same easy range as it was before. If you've been out for several weeks, you've possibly lost some fitness. And so you're gonna have to work back to that fitness that you had before. So really, I would just go completely by feel when you're getting back to your running. You don't wanna be looking at a pace on your watch. You wanna be thinking about keeping that 3 RPE on a 1 to 10 scale. If you monitor heart rate, 75% of your maximum heart rate, staying about in that range, that's gonna put you at an easy enough pace when you're getting back to it. And maybe you look at your watch afterwards and that you see that you're going much slower. That's fine. At least you were able to get out there and run. You have to give yourself grace in these moments and just be proud that you're able to be out there back running. That is kind of our happy place, right? So you want to remind yourself that that is the point. And for some people, this is going to mean a run-walk situation. Perhaps when you're getting back to it and just testing the waters. Maybe you're just doing 1 minute running, 1 minute of walking, or maybe it's 3 minutes of running, 1 minute of walking. Giving yourself an opportunity just to test it out on those first few runs until it starts feeling more comfortable again. But again, going slow as you need. And honestly, that's a great frame of mind to have all the time. And most of the time we're doing easy runs anyway, and you can go as slow as you need on those easy runs in order to maximize your aerobic capacity and build that aerobic endurance. So number 4, when you get back to running, you can do those 10 minutes comfortably, and maybe 30 minutes, it was comfortable that first run as well. And that is awesome. Going slow as you need, doesn't matter. Hallelujah, you are back out there and getting your run in. Next, you need to use what's called a graded return. And so this is not you just going back to the schedule that you had previously. Maybe you were running 5 or 6 days a week. That's not what's gonna happen in this first week back. So I'm gonna link an article from Running Physio, a lot of great information in this article about returning from injury. And it talks about the importance of only running every other day when you're first coming back. And now the reason for this is because it can take up to 48 hours for inflammation to occur. So that very next day, you might be saying to yourself, yep, I feel great, I'm gonna run again, when in actuality, you're just exacerbating whatever is going on in your body, and then you're gonna end up feeling worse the next day than you did before. And so by having that rest day in between, it just allows your body the ability to acclimate to whatever kind of run you put it through the day before, and your body can say, yep, we're good with this, go ahead, you can run the next day, or put a stop on it. Nope, this doesn't feel good. We're not ready yet. And so you want to go back with that graded return of running every other day. Now, after that first week, if you weren't really out for very much time, if you were maybe only out for a week, maybe up to 2 weeks, let's say, then that following week, you can get back to running the number of days that you were running before. But you want to reduce the mileage. So first week back, you're running every other day just to see where your body is at. That next week, that's when you can start getting back to your normal number of days a week that you were running. But essentially the strategy you're following is little and often. And so you're still giving your body an opportunity to run every day and say, hey, yep, we're getting back to running. This is what we're doing. This is our new routine, without overtaxing the body by putting all of the same miles on that you were doing before. All right, so Runner's World, I'm gonna link their article, but they have provided a great breakdown of kind of depending on how much time you've missed from that injury or illness, what percentage of your running mileage you're going to want to be doing when you get back to it. So again, thinking about this as a percentage, because obviously we're all doing different mileages in our training plans. So if you are 1 week off or less, pick up your plan where you left off. So still having that graded return, but for the most part, you can pick up where you left off. If you're off up to 10 days, start running 70% of your previous mileage. If you were off 15 to 30 days, you're gonna start running at 60% of your previous mileage. And if you were off 30 days to 3 months, start running 50% of your previous mileage. And I know that last one may seem like a lot, but there are certainly situations where people are going to have to take more time off of this. And at that point, if you were in the middle of a training plan, because I know a lot of people wanna know, well, where am I jumping back into the training plan? If you've truly missed a month or more from an illness or injury, it might be a situation where you're going to have to reassess if going forward with that race is the best plan for you or not. Okay, so Runner's World gave us a really good plan about percentages for jumping back in. Now you have to readjust your plan for a proper mileage progression. So let's say you're out for 2 weeks. So going by Runner's World suggestion, they say that when you can come back, you should be coming back at 60% of the mileage that you were doing. Now this is gonna be after your graded return that we talked about, going every other day first to make sure that your body is ready. Then you're doing that 60% of your total mileage. So if you were doing 36 miles, that's about 20 miles, right? So in that first full week back where you're back to your running, your daily routine that you're running, maybe you're running 5 or 6 days a week, then you can put in 20 miles over the course of those days. Then from there, typically I suggest doing a 10% jump. You can probably do a little bit more than that because you were running 36 miles not that long ago. So a little bit higher jump than those 10% is probably fine. You just want to make sure that you are not following exactly the mileage that was there before and not making too big of jumps. So if you're saying 20 miles, let's say maybe you're gonna let yourself do 20% and then you're back to 24, and you're probably gonna be fine with that because your body was pretty acclimated to 36 miles before then. You're just gonna have to readjust your plan for getting to race day. And honestly, kind of doing some backwards planning is probably the best bet in that situation. And in certain situations, this is kind of the last point, you need to adjust expectations as needed. So realistically, in certain situations, you are going to have to make some adjustments, that things maybe aren't going to turn out exactly as you planned, especially if you had a shorter marathon training cycle that you were dealing with here. Luckily, last year when I had that calf pull, I had so much great training under my belt when it happened, and it was very short-lived, that I was still able to go out and achieve my Boston qualifying time. So I don't want you guys to think that if you suffer an injury or illness that you can't meet the goal that you had already set for yourself. When we're really dedicated and have our eye on the prize, big things can sometimes happen. But in other situations, you don't want to do more damage to yourself, right? And so you have to take care that you're doing the right thing for your body and not just pushing yourself so that you can try to meet that original goal that you had. Unfortunately, this is just something that we experience as runners, and it's nothing, you don't need to feel bad about it. Running can be a really, really tough sport, and obviously you want to do everything you can to not get injured, right? But most runners will suffer some sort of injury, and we're all going to suffer some sort of illness likely, and you have to have a good plan for getting back to it that's going to help keep your body healthy long term. You want to think longevity in this sport, not just the race that's coming next. So I hope that you guys got value out of this video, that it's helpful in terms of trying to make the best decisions for you in your circumstance, for coming back for an injury and illness, getting back to that training plan in the best way possible that's going to keep you healthy and moving towards your goals as well. And this is also a really good reason why it's good to work with a coach, because I often work with the medical professionals that my runners are working with so that we can come up with the best plan that is recommended by the medical professional that they've seen, and that what I know from my expertise as a running coach, so that we can make the best plan possible to get you to your goal. As always, questions, drop them below. I'm happy to answer, and I will catch you guys in the next video.